who's doing web games? Cool. So you are probably all are aware of that. Mozilla announced that they wouldn't support plugins anymore, which means that our solution with the web player wouldn't work anymore, unfortunately. And then Chrome said more or less the same thing, so we expect Safari and IE at some point to follow the same steps. So we had to find a solution, and we were like, what are we gonna do? And HTML5 seemed like the logic solution to fix that problem. So this is a game that Trigger 2 running currently in Firefox, and made with Unity. It was launched last year on iOS tablets, and now we just wanted to make sure that we made it through technology, and we wanted to make sure that it would work. So this is working without a plugin. It's all based on HTML5 and WebGL, and I can kill zombies, so it's pretty cool. I'm gonna let the chicken do the job for me because they are way better than me. Yeah. That's old crap. But I mean, you can see that there's some physics. There's like the whole 3D environment. There's, I would say, audio. I mean, we are not hearing it, but trust me, there's audio. We have, of course, UI and everything. So, since I always die before the end of the level, I'm gonna stop. What we did is we had to find a solution, so we did our own technology called IL to CPP, which means interpreted language to C++. So what we do is we take the bytecode from the C# or Unity script, and when it's kind of compiled, but not quite compiled, we're taking this and getting C++ out of that code. And with that interpreted language in C++, which by the way is not human readable, I tried just because I thought I was good in C++, and looks like I'm not. I did the code. We were taking that part of the code plus our engine, and we then can use tools like mscripting to convert over to HTML5 and WebGL. So this is what we get. It's running on top of ASM.js, so you still use the same editor, Unity editor, all of these different tools, and you just change the build targets for WebGL, and that's it. So it's working. Currently in Fido, it's going to be as a preview. Why? It's simply because not everything is supported yet. What does that mean? Everything that you can see in that game, in that trigger, obviously is supported, but if you are using features like the webcam or anything else that wasn't really useful for our basic use case, we had a couple of them, then they might not be supported right in 5, but later in the 5x cycles. Yeah, we are still tied with the same browser's sandbox limitation, so we can still not write viruses directly to the files, right? And yeah, any question about this? Sure.
Do you know if the mic will be supported in WebGL? Microphone?
It will be, but it will. So I'm pretty sure it's not supported at the moment.
Yeah. Do you have any specific examples? Do you have any specific examples of what isn't supported out of the box right now?
Webcam, microphone, and I mean, to be honest, the answer is no, because everything I tried worked, but I made like super simple games with just basic shaders and stuff like that.
Full physics engine?
Yes. Mechanism physics is going to be supported, mechanism supported, I mean the UI is going to be supported. It's just like the features, like if you are trying to use, I don't know, I'm not sure, so don't quote me on this, but if you're trying to use something super specific with like networking features, then maybe not right now, but in the near future, we're targeting to support, of course, everything. I mean, we want it to be exactly the same experience over all the different platforms that we support. Anything specific that you're looking for?
I was most concerned about networking. So.
Right. But the thing is, with networking, anyway, you have limitations because of the sandbox, and it's kind of a little bit different. The other thing I didn't mention is there is one downside with this, because now that we're using, we are building on top of HTML5, unfortunately, we cannot have a plugin using multi-threads, so it might be a little bit slower on older PCs, but since everyone is buying new PCs, we probably will see no difference at all, even though it's single thread. So now the question. Here? Yep.
We may have kind of covered this just now, but I was curious. I know there's new shaders coming in Unity 5. Will those also be supported in the web deployed version out of the box?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to talk about it right away, but eventually we'll talk about the new shaders. Question?
Will DirectX 11 features work on export platforms in WebGL?
I'm really not sure, and I would say probably no, because like Mersha, you know that? Like for DirectX feature, I'm not even sure if they are supported on all the platforms.
If the browser supports it, then
yeah,
maybe. Because it's going to a managed API, so whatever the browser changes.
Yeah.
Is that the new cloth in the browser?
No. Oh, well, that's
at the bottom of the browser. Is that cloth?
it's probably part of it.
Flags?
This one at the bottom?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like the triggers was made by the Turkish company, and I mean we probably have the source somewhere, but I don't have it, so I can't say. It looks like it is, but it could be also just an animation. So usually Carl always keeps the audio for the last part. I don't know why. One of the cool things is that we rewrote the whole audio system from the FMOD level down until the editor, and this is what we are getting now. Now we see that there's a mixer, a real one. So we have a mixer tree, we have different channels. We can obviously use all the volumes, solo, mute, bypass, but you can also add per channel sound effects. Our goal was to make sure that everything is as open as possible. So if you're not happy with our basic sound effects that we're providing for each of the channels, well, you can write your own using C++. So even if you want to use like a fancy, heavy CPU sound effects, well, you can still do it, and you don't have to rely on C# and on top of Mono and everything to do all the CPU intensive communications. Also, everything in the API is supposed to be open, so everything is built. I mean, anyone's using Shuriken? Anyone has tried to use Shuriken with code and then find out that it's not there? For the audio system, everything is supposed to be open. So I think it's good news because it means that you can literally make something even better than what we did and set it on the asset store, be rich, and remember that I'm really nice. So we're having those new sound effects. We have obviously here a mixer tree. Here we can see on the left the whole thing. We also are adding snapshots. So if I click on the different snapshots, you'll see that in the mixer, volumes will change. So you can have a snapshot while you're in the forest because you want to hear birds. And you have a different snapshot when you're in a cave because you want to hear reverb and no birds. So you make those two different snapshots, and when you're moving from one place to the other, you can blend over from the two different snapshots and transition and have a smooth blend between the whole thing. If we are going a little bit more on the technical side, and I'm running this scene, even though we don't want to hear anything, it's really a programmer scene for testing. If we're going on the profile, in the profiler, and here, and then I go down to the audio, we have now stats per channel, and we can see like which sound is playing, what like it's moving. We also have per groups and channeling groups, so you know where the sounds are coming from, like where are they in the hierarchy, so you can easily find out where that sound that you're hearing and you don't want to hear is coming from. And you also have obviously all the different statistics for like memory and CPU usage and all that stuff. By default, we are not using MP3 anymore as the internal format. We're switching over outdoor base. The memory footprint is much smaller, which is good for mobile devices. And the other cool thing, which is also related to asset bundles, is that now you can stream audio from asset bundle, which means you don't necessarily have to load your whole music track in memory. And I mean, especially I think for mobile devices, it's pretty cool. We also have now format like PCM, AV-PCM, if it's fine for what you're doing, then even more compression for free. Anything else I should say about the audio system? Except that it's pretty cool. Or any question maybe? Sure.
How does it work with the already like preset audio scripts that we have, like for filters and effects?
I'm pretty sure that the whole API changed. I mean, I can't say because I haven't updated like my projects.
Right, so like if you have this mixer and how do you attach like a reverb to a channel and how do you equalize a channel? Like do you have new scripts or is it all in the mixer interface?
Well, the thing is, well, you can play with the volumes in the audio mixer, and then you can also add equalizers if you want.
Okay, so everything's right there. Okay.
Yeah. The thing is, I tried to use equalizer, and I'm a little bit disappointed just because where it is.
Range. Up to.
Parameter, EQ. That one.
All right, here it is, and you can only have one point at the same time, which means that you have to put another one. But I'm kind of disappointed because I was expecting like at least 3 or 5 at the same time, so I can like see the whole curve. But I mean, if someone is up to write a new one and sell it on the asset store, you know, it might be a good business case. Any other questions or?
Can the snapshots be stored as animation states?
They are not. Have you seen the keynote for it? Yeah. Okay. Do you know what might be coming? It's not, I think, integrated yet. I'm not sure of the use case that are going to be used to make the future, but I don't know if you guys haven't seen the keynote at Unite in Seattle late August. Like skip the first part, switch over to about like I don't know maybe 15 minutes and watch it. It's pretty cool. There's also new stuff that in our R&D lab at the moment, so I think I'm gonna load another scene, one that, where is it? You probably have seen our trailer back at GDC showing the doll. So you guys probably remember that face. So it's true, it's running, it works. Thing is, this is showing our new PBR shader, physically based rendering shader, and also some part of the global illumination system. So there's only my doll in the environment if we're looking at the scene. and anything else is just the skybox. So if I go back in my game and then I click here, we change the background, the skybox, and then I see that it's taken into account on my materials on the doll. So it looks like the real thing. And it's really amazing. Cool thing, it also works on mobile. If we have a quick look at it, if I look at there's going to be a new shader. This is like the really old interface by default, so if you have access to the latest beta, it might have changed. By default, we're going to have one new shader by default called the standard shader, which is this one. All of the parameters are in there, all of the parameters that usually artist needs. So we have the albedo channel, the specular channel. If I remove the specular channel, then I can use a roughness slider if you prefer more gloss or like rough channel. There's the same thing with normal map, height maps, everything. You also have 2 UV channels. And the cool thing is, if you're not happy with this shader, well, you have the source code and you have access to up to 4 UV channels now. So, I mean, do something, set it on the asset store, be rich, again. The cool thing is, it's really easy to use, and we wanted to make sure that even if you're not using all of the different channels because you're making a game for mobile, for instance, and you don't want to be too heavy, well, we will compile a version of the shader only using the parameters that you are currently set. Right? The other thing is, if you had such a complex shader in 4, I mean, we've tried it internally to import it back in 4. It took like 2 hours to import like in the settings just because it had to compile all of the different versions. In 5, it will only compile the version that you need, so it's pretty fast. And yeah. There is a WCAT here. Oops. Let's see. I don't have my mouse. So, for instance, all of this occurs in the time. So if I look at my tab, and I look at the different settings here, I have low sticker and low albedo, so it's just like reflecting everything. And if we look at it, it's reflecting everything, and then I change the background, and you still see it. So this is a cheesy example, but to the extreme, this is what it will look like, which is pretty cool. And the thing is, even if I'm like as I was saying, I don't have specular, so if I play with like the slider, I can see in real time the effect on the glossiness or. No, well, I have one. It's just it's fine. Yeah. Any question about the PBR?
So so is this like a type of surface shader then, the physically based shader? Is that what makes it so it can be all different platforms and like types needed that?
I'm not sure I understand.
So it's not that you have physically based rendering, it's that there's a shader that does like a physically based rendering approximation of the shader.
Yes, but we still have double illumination, so
with this shader?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is probably the next topic. Let's talk about the lighting system and reflection probes and more stuff. But unfortunately, I don't have anything cool to show with this, so I'm going to talk, and you have to either trust me or try it. Yeah. Sure.
I have a couple questions on
Sure.
shaders. So I see on that shader, glossiness is just a slider. You have a stock shader that gives the user the ability to use their own gloss maps.
Yes, but if you have a specular texture, then you don't get the slider. So, like if I click on anything else in the doll, here I have already done in there. The thing is, I'm not an artist, like far from it. I can draw a stickman, but you wouldn't be impressed. So I don't know really what to show about the shader, like that looks cool, other than the balloon.
I mean, do you have like, does it come with a shader that gives the artist the ability to put a separate specular map and a separate gloss map? Or is it like one or the other?
Like the color.
I think the gloss is just the output channel of the specular map.
Oh, okay.
And you can tweak, like, if you, the slide that is gone, but you can change the specular colors there a little bit.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, right. And I mean, worst case, you have the code of the shader, plus you get like 4 UVs, and you can do pretty much funky stuff. I'm glad that we're interested here.
Cool, thank you.
So, let's talk about Enlighten. Oh, I have something to show. I don't have the bill, unfortunately. That's one of the reasons why I'm sad that doesn't work well. I'm sad that Carl isn't here because he has this bill. This is bug. Video rendering. Wow. Or maybe it's with the other. Gonna work now. Yeah. Well, this is Enlighten. It's the new lighting solution that we're using instead of Beast. Beast is not going to be supported anymore. And with this, you get like obviously dynamic global illumination, but also dynamic lights in real time, and it's also working on mobile. This was made. This is running on the high-end mobile devices, the Samsung one. I'm not sure which one exactly, unfortunately. And the thing is, the first time I showed this video, I was telling people, well, it's a video, so who knows if it's a real thing or not. And then at some point, Carl showed it to me on his like personal device running, and I was like, okay, so it's true. It's not like a lie. And I wish I had the bill, and I forgot it a couple of weeks ago when I met him last time. So if he's coming, you know what to ask him. Right? We want to see this for real. So global illumination, we are of course getting lights from the whole skybox to like, and then we can change features like the exposure, but get more lights from the skybox, influencing the colors under different objects in your scene. But you also have like bounce lights, how much light you want to bounce on the floor, like to show under different buildings, or under the director, and that kind of stuff. For this, I think that the best demo is probably the one that Joachim, our CTO, did during the keynote at Unite, which basically showed in real time everything. Well, not everything, but a lot of stuff about this. One of the cool things now is that we're getting rid of the wait button, just because it doesn't make sense as a usual workflow. Why would we have to wait and then wait, and like there's some math going on in the background, and then we have to wait for a long time before we can see what's going on in our scene and tweak it. So we're getting rid of this, and our goal is to make sure that it's going to be faster. How are we going to do that? It's just by separating the scene with voxels at some point. I'm not sure if it's going to be in 5.0 or later in the cycle, but it's definitely on the roadmap. So we're going to split the scene in voxels to make sure that it's baked faster, because you just have to bake. If you are moving one building, you may not have to reveal the whole scene. We also want eventually to integrate a ray tracer that's going to give you a quick preview of your scene. So if you're working as an artist and you move something, you want to do some fine tuning, then the ray tracer will give you in a couple of seconds a quick snapshot of what it would look like, even before having to wait for the whole baking stuff to happen in the background. What does that mean is, instead, like for a moderate to complex scene that could take like 2 hours to bake, it means that you can just drag and drop stuff and wait a couple of seconds, get a preview, tweak, move a little bit on the right, move this here and there, and you're good to go. So hopefully artists are going to save hours and hours and hours of work and to wait. Like, I can't do anything. Other thing is, we want to make sure that you can choose the number of CPUs that you can use for making the background so you can still work while this is going in the background. I'm sure I'm forgetting tons of things about this. We are also adding reflection probes. So you are probably used to the light probes that helps like quickly calculate the lighting system if you don't want to use the goal to make everything. So with reflection probes, the goal is simply that we can easily, I think the somewhat clunky demo. It's like it was a bad idea. Yeah. So with the reflection probe, the goal is simply that you create an area where you're going to build some sort of skybox on top of it, but that area is going to be used to put reflection lights on your character. So one of the, I think that the easiest use case to think about is, let's say you're making World of Warcraft and then you are going from a building, inside, of course inside, to the outside world. I would put a reflection probe inside of the building, so whenever your character walks in, you get all the light from the inside of the building. So if it's made with wood and there's a fire down there, then you're going to get more like brown orange light on your character. And if you are going outside and it's sunny and the sky is blue, then you're obviously getting a light is more like white. So with the reflection probes, cool thing is when you're going to walk from one place to the other, you're going to get that cool feeling, but you are also going to get like lights from reflection from the different game objects that are there. So here's my little example that doesn't mean anything. It's super awful, but where is it? See? So that's the thing. Here, I have a sphere. Unfortunately, my skybox is not looking good, but I have a sphere. It's using the PBR shader, so like there's nothing else to show other than reflecting the skybox now. Thing is, I put those red bars on top, and I would like them to be reflected on my sphere. So the thing is, I simply have put a reflection probe. As you can see, there's a big area for the reflection probe. And then I go back to my sphere and say, here, use reflection probes. And we are not seeing anything. Right? Reason. Well, I should try with my latest install before talking, right? Usually, we see on top of the black sphere the red bar, so this is a total fail. Wow. I don't see
Can you? Is it the view?
I don't think so.
The bottom of the red bar is black.
No. It's just like really the super basic thing. I mean, it's just a standard shader with red. But, well, we still understand what's more or less the goal about the reflection probes, I think, I hope. And the thing is, I did this in a really old pre-beta build. And whenever we upgrade to the new build, sometimes there's some things that changes and we don't get necessarily errors and it's not compatible. And I'm going to make new examples because now, yeah. Let's see that it works. Any questions? Or not? Right. No? Okay. anyone who's using Mutator? Yeah. So, Mutator was a little bit painful because, of course, you have animation events if you want to sync animation with code or like events, of course. But the problem is that when you're using animation events, you only have like one function that you can call. You only have one. Well, we have multiple functions that you can call, but you only have one parameter. So when you have multiple animation running at the same time, calling all the same function, then it's hard to figure like who's calling that function. And you can trigger events, but that's about it. So it's not always cool. What if you want, for instance, to have a character that, let's say you're making the next Street Fighter game, and whenever you give a punch or you give a kick, you want to make sure that there's going to be a rhythm effect following your arm or your leg. There's no easy solution for this because you would have to put like triggers all over your animation to make sure that you're going to trigger functions and trying to find a clever way to pass parameters for following your thing. So obviously my example is exactly this. I have my character here, and I have an animation. Whenever I click on the screen, it's going to trigger a different kick animation, and as you can see, there's some sort of fire flowing his foot. Right. That was almost impossible in the past. Cool thing now is if I go into my animator, I have my base layer as usual. Idle goes to 5 when I click. If I go into 5, I have multiple states, and if I click on my states, cool thing, wow, here, there's simply a script attached to that state. I have parameters here. Is it going to be left foot? Is it going to be right foot? If I click on my trail effect, we will discover the new state machine behavior scripts, which are really tied to the different states. So, state machine behavior, I have my left or right foot for the animation. Cool thing is I have on enter state, on state exit, and on state update. That's not used in this case, and on state IK. If we quickly have a look at the code, we'll see that when we enter, is it going to be, we instantiate the trail object. The trail object, if we look at it, it's in the prefab. By trail, it's just a trail renderer, which is configured to be our fire effect. So we instantiate it. When we exit, well, we destroy it. And the rest of the time, on state IK, we just follow. Is it going to be left or right foot? And then we use the IK position for our goal, which is the foot right or left, and the position and rotation, and we just make sure that the trail instance is going to follow the foot, and that's it. So with this, we are unleashing much more power to create behaviors to be attached to scripts. And what if you create a behavior and there's no animation? It's basically just a state machine with like visual debugging inside of Unity. Yes?
All these state methods, do they just work when the script is on a clip?
Yes. Yes. But the thing is, yeah, but that's the thing. On this one, I can attach that script, but I can attach a different script on the different state.
Can you refer to a state from a script outside of the mechanism system?
I don't think so. But like for these, from these states, you can refer to another, just a usual behavior or a static function.
But you couldn't call on the state as to refer to a specific animator?
No, because you have to be in that state for it to be instantiated and called. Questions? About animation?
That's cool.
I would hope that Carl's here. We also updated the physics system to the latest version now. So basically, it's just able to handle more components at the same time. Also, some of the basic features are improved if you're using like vehicle and wheels. I just don't remember the name. If you're using vehicles, there's more basic features for this. Other than that, it's a bit more performant, like for the dynamic collision solver. And the only advice is if you are using magic values for like fine-tuning your effects, you might have to tune them again, but that's about it. We have also improved our job manager, which is part of our core. So before, if you would like, use multiple CPUs, you would see like small gaps not used here and there. With the new job manager, everything is really used as much as possible. We also improved our asset loading system, so it's really multi-threaded, and I mean, animation, rendering, audio are also obviously really multi-threaded. So performances in general are better. We don't have a precise number because it really depends on what you're using, but average, you can expect improvements. Yes?
Is the script runtime multi-threaded such that if you put it in it, it'll
No, we're still relying on coroutine, which is a lie about multi-threading. If you really need multi-threading, I would simply recommend that you make a native plugin and make threads by yourself, if it's possible. But
What about just splitting up your script runtime from the actual Unity editor, so that like, if you do your script, you don't crash later?
yeah, I know. I feel the same thing. Sorry? No, but the fact that when you're running your game and it's crashing, then the editor is also crashing. It's still the same thread, unfortunately. And I agree with you that.
Don't crash it.
That's not it never crashes. I'm not sure if it's part of the roadmap, but because it would require a lot of changes in the core. We made a lot of them for 5. I'm not saying it's not something that we are not considering because, yeah, you're not the first one. Yes?
So I see it says 64-bit, is that going to be supported?
Right, that's a good thing. So anyone running out of memory? You're going to have the 64-bit editor now, so if you have to make like large scene and you would have to crash or just by running the game, hopefully it's not the case anymore unless you have a really big game, but then I would like to see your computer because it's really big. We will still have the version of the 32-bit editor just in case you want to test for release of 32-bit applications. That's a good point. Thanks. I was going to forget about it.
And any updates to the .NET version or still the .NET, like the C#, the runtime?
Well,
I know you guys are working on something, but
yes. We're working on IL to CPP, which could open. I started by talking about it. So with this tech, we could eventually do much more stuff because we control everything on that side of the tech. I mean, our R&D team is working on something, but I wouldn't expect any announcement like before a year from now. And in a year from now, anyway, a lot of things can change. So one of the cool things, I mean, a lot of people were complaining about the performance of the garbage collector, and internally we tried to update like the .NET version, and we didn't see that much improvement simply because we are using tons of memory pool on top of the garbage collector, so it was kind of not really useful. I'm expecting is that eventually we can support like C# 4 and the new libraries, but we are focusing really hard on IL2CPP. One of the things I didn't talk about is that with IL2CPP, because we are getting C++ code for building eventually on WebGL, why don't we just build with native compilers? So this is something we could expect at some point during the 5x cycle, like building ahead of time and using native compilers. And we are all early aware that the C++ compilers are a little bit better than in performance than what we get otherwise. So that's going to be more CPU for free. I don't have any dates, and I prefer not to give any dates because, yeah, it's going to be there when it's ready, I would say. Anyone? Sure?
Another question, you said dates. What's the timeline for 5.0?
That's a good question. I mean, the answer I should give is when it's going to be ready, which is not nice, but I would say early 2015, crossing my fingers. And the reason why I'm saying that is simply because we are currently in some sort of semi-open beta, but not quite open beta yet. So we have months of polishing that are coming, and I don't know if we're going to find something new that we have to refactor that's going to still push the date past like another month. So, yeah. I would say that probably that in December we will have something more open for the beta and something quite stable, but currently there's some of the systems that are not quite stable enough to be and that makes us think that it's going to take like months to stabilize everything, unfortunately. But yeah. If you have any valid reason like to give a try to 5.0, just get in touch with me and we can talk about it and we can arrange something for sure. Anyone is using 2D? Cool. So on the 2D side, new features coming for the physics systems. I don't have the demo unfortunately. I wish I had because they are pretty cool, but if you're using the current physics system, now we are adding more features like the area effect. So when you have an object entering in a certain area, you can add a force by default. We're also adding attractors and repulsors. I think that the use case for attractors is, let's say you make a planet and you want to put gravity. It's easy. And repulsor, minus the gravity. We also added the, I don't know how we call it, but I would say one-way platform. So if you're playing Mario Bros, you know, when you jump on a platform, you cannot go through it. But if you are playing Donkey Kong, then you can jump on the platform, which means that the collider is only like in one way. So that's a new feature that's going to be there by default. And I would expect that in the future we are adding more and more features on that side. Unfortunately, no big plans for Shuriken for 5.0. There's definitely a roadmap for Shuriken, but it's later in the 5x cycle. Everyone's asking me so. Any other question about this?
Yeah. So when I was looking through the release notes, I saw useful shader errors. And I'm curious as to what a useful shader error would provide, other than just putting pink in like a channel. See what it does.
I will give you my card because I don't know that much about the shaders. I haven't heard of much stuff about this. Maybe Mersha would know. Like Is there anything better for the errors with the shaders? Improve? Yep.
Better as in what? What's missing now? What are you missing?
Well, or maybe you can.
I'll follow up.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to say something. Oh. New thing. You probably have seen that we announced cloud build at Unite, which is pretty cool because if you have you don't have to wait anymore for builds. You can just use your source version control, submit your stuff, and then automatically there's computers on the cloud that will build stuff for you. I don't have a demo ready, that's why Carl be at 4 p.m. saying, hey, can you do the presentation for me? Yes. And but if you go to Unity on our website, there's definitely links there. Try to get into the beta, and basically you just log into your usual Unity account, and then you're going to be able to create more projects. So you create projects, you give the credentials to get access to your server version control, and whenever there's some changes on there, then we're going to grab the changes and we're going to make builds out of it. Like it's working currently for iOS and Android, and then we can push the builds or send notifications. So if you have testers, they can just grab the build out there by default. They don't have to build everything. They don't have to connect to the source version. Eventually, our plan is to push directly to the different mobile devices, and of course, it's also to support all of the other platforms. But we wanted to start with Android and iOS because I think there's a broad range of application and customers using these platforms. Anyone's using asset bundles? Yeah. So if you used asset bundles in the past, you found out that you had to write scripts to like get these assets in that bundle plus all the dependencies. It was painful. But if you are looking here, just down here, if I click, let's say on that prefab, the fight trail, down there, I have the asset bundle name. This is the old interface, by the way, it's way better now. That just write the asset bundle when you're going to build. We're going to take this, make the asset bundle for you, and figure out the dependency for you. So it's way simpler. Way simpler. Anything else I should talk about that I'm forgetting? Or general questions? Or
so I want to thank Francis for taking my job, playing United. And very important, Sarah Wallman is also here. So Sarah can really help you, like if you're an indie guy and you want to expand your team, she can help you out with licensing. But also, she has a really deep knowledge about what's all around the ecosystem of Unity. So you have questions about the ecosystem, how you can grow. But also like for future upgrades, how you can save money. As an indie guy, that's very important. See really can help you out with that. So I want to thank you, Elliot, and thank you, Francis, for doing all my work.
And make sure to visit that URL if you want to like have a chance to win a free pro license. Yep.